Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here today. Sorry about the weird thing with the chat box. I never realized there was another setting there. I never had to change it, and Dave found it. I'm like, geez, everybody's being awful quiet today. So glad you're all here. We've got people still logging in. So today we are going to talk about the new Nik Collection 5. I'm going to do some of my usual type of creative processing and point out some of the new features as we go along. A couple of the things that are new, most of the new stuff in this collection were to the Nik color effects and analog effects, and also perspective effects. They added a bunch of new cameras and lenses for that. But the main interface changes were color effects and analog effects. They went to that new modern looking interface that they started introducing in some of the other programs. In color effects, they also added clear view technology, and I'll point that out when we get in there. And that's kind of like dehaze in Lightroom and other programs. It's to reduce haze, mist, and fog. And they've added 29 new authentic film grains in color effects. And you can also, we also now have the U point or control point technology in the analog effects, which I guess they didn't have before, and I never really noticed that. So we're going to dive in, and I'm going to try and point some things out, and please do ask some questions. Martin says he can't add new filters in Nik 5. I'm not sure what do you mean the whole program or something specific? If you can clarify that, Martin. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, I wanted to mention too, if you got the notes or if you haven't yet, in this batch of notes, because I'm only using like one texture, it's mostly the Nik stuff, I made this set of 6 sparkly bokeh textures for you. So this is included in the notes, which are on sale until next Tuesday for just $5. So let's get started. Oh, one other thing I wanted to point out. I'm going to open up this image. When you're installing the new Nik setup, you will get when you're near just before the finish, you're going to get this pop-up. Don't do it. I installed this a few weeks ago when they had one of the minor updates, and it took away my access to all of the Nik stuff in my filter menu, and my little, box that's down here, it all disappeared because they assume, I guess, you're going to use Photolab 5 and not Photoshop. So I panicked because it was hours before I was doing a Nik webinar or a seminar for a camera club. So I uninstalled it and reinstalled it without doing this, and then it was fine. So just as an aside, unless you plan to use Photolab 5, don't do this step. So with that, I'm going to open up my first image, and I wanted to create kind of a vintage look with this one. So the first thing I'm going to do here, this is a raw file. I've done no adjustments. I just made it a JPEG just so I could, bring it in for the webinar easier, but I have not done anything to this image at all. I am going to duplicate my layer with a Control or Command J, and I do want to straighten it a little bit. So I'm going to go into my crop tool, and I'm just going to straighten those front 2 lines. I'm getting this line and this line straighter. So, and then I'm going to bring in the right side just a little bit to get rid of whatever that little thing is back there. So I'm going to come in about there and say, okay. Then we're going to go to, open up my Nik panel. I'm going to go into Viveza. And Viveza is great for adjusting all of your colors and making your image look good before you get into the creative stuff. And I always try to do that, even though I may, like with this one, I'm going to end up changing it with a preset that's not even going to look like the colors of the real image, but I always like to get my image looking as good as it can when, you know, at each step before I get into the creative stuff. So from here, I'm going to go to preset number 10, which is called Adjust Sky. And then we're going to make some tweaks, and it made our sky a little bit bluer. I don't know why the control point is there because I didn't push that yet, but we'll just get rid of that if we can. Let's just drag that out of the way. So I'm going to go up to the top, and I'm going to go, actually I didn't intensify any or change anything else here. I just did this to intensify the colors. And I want to add another preset. So I'm going to apply this one because you can, in Viveza, you can only do one preset. At least I haven't figured out a way to do a second one. So I'm going to apply this, go back to Photoshop, and then come back into Viveza. We also, oh, I see Melanie said when you use a preset, it shows the control points that they have added to their presets. Thank you. I never noticed that before. So that is definitely something new. What did I do before the preset? You said you wanted to make it as good as possible. Well, I hadn't done anything yet. I just wanted to let you know that that's my workflow, is that I wanted to do that. All right, so next I'm going to go into the one called Cool It Down. And from here, I'm going to make a few adjustments. So brightness, I changed to -8. Structure, which I like to use structure and details instead of any kind of sharpening. I never sharpen in Photoshop anymore. Shadows, we're going to open up a little bit. Red, we're going to add a little more red to the barn. And just a touch more green. And then we're going to apply this one. And I'm going to go into our color effects, which is one of the updated modules. I don't know why it does this like white screen in between. It started doing that with this new version. I've never had that happen in the past. It's kind of annoying and bright when you're looking at your screen. So from here, I'm going to go into old photo. And I'm going to come over to the options. So this is where all the new layout comes into play. So here's that clear view that I mentioned. So from here, if you wanted to dehaze or, you know, had fog or whatever, you would slide that, and you can see how it's bringing some of the, it's adding contrast generally, which is what the clarity does, or dehaze, I mean, in Lightroom. And then you also have these new grain filters if you want to match file, gosh, I can't talk today, film types. You can do that to get some grain in there. So for this one, I'm going to come down into the styles. I'm going to go to color and choose number 1. And it's going to give it this real faded kind of retro look, which is what I was looking for with this particular image. And then I'm going to actually use that as is, but I do want to add a border to this one. So I'm going to come over to, we used to have under here, add a filter if you wanted to add a second filter. Instead of there being a button under the right-hand panel now, when you come over to the left and go to your next filter, once you hover over it, you'll get this plus sign that pops up. When you click that plus, that will then add that filter on top of the other one. So I'm going to use image border 12. And I'm going to make some changes. So I'm going to make the size there. I'm going to bring the spread all the way down to reduce the width of the black. And I'm going to bring up the grunge factor a little bit. And that's just the raggediness of that border. And then we'll apply that one. So Danelle says she uses DxO Deep Prime before anything else, before processing her image, and then if needed, sharpen with Topaz Sharpen AI to finish it up. I've heard lots of good things about the DxO Deep Prime. I have not used that yet, so I may have to take a look at that at some point. I'm like, I've got so much software that some I don't really use much, so I have to think about that. But I have heard lots of good things about that one. So that is our first image. Let me get that out of the way. So we went from our unedited photo to that. And I kind of like that. Like I said, I was kind of going for that retro kind of style, faded type of an image. And that's why I like this border too. So there we have it there. So when you apply the texture, are you hitting save preset? No, I did not save this preset. You can save your own recipe. Like if I combine, you know, that preset with the border and I wanted to apply that to another image, you can save your own presets, but I did not do that, Cindy. Robert says DxO Deep Prime is magic. Try it, you'll like it. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to look at that in my spare time. And we know how much I have of that these days. All right, so next up, I'm going to take this kind of ordinary sort of walk in the woods type of an image. I took this a few years ago. Dave just typed in, please don't encourage Hazel to try more software. Yes, I do have quite a bit for sure. So in this one, I'm going to go into my Viveza. And I like to usually start with the presets. I'm always of the mindset, you know, these companies took all the time to create them, so why not utilize them? And then you can fine tune them to match your image. I don't always 100% of the time, but a lot of the times I do. So this one we're going to go to warm it up and really add some nice fall color to this scene. And then we're going to make a few changes. So I'm going to take my brightness down a little bit and add a teensy bit of contrast. Take our structure up. Highlights here and shadows bring down here. The notes download image. Oh. Uh-oh. That's not a good thing. All the people who've purchased it, nobody's looked at it. Uh-oh. I'll have to check that out. And I will definitely check that tonight. And if it's not in there, I will put it in there and you can still use your same link to get back to the file and download it. Sorry about that. Usually I put them all in one folder and just copy it all in there. So I will take a peek at that. Thanks, Pat. There's always something. The notes are in the download with the bokeh. Oh, okay. Pat says they got put in the subfolder with the bonus textures. So instead of the main folder, so take a peek in there and double check it. Okay. Thank you, Pat, though, and thanks, Pat Haney, as well. Alrighty, cool. Phew. Like, I thought I put them in there. I must have just drug it into the wrong folder. Okay, so with this one, we've done that. Now I want to add some sunlight to this image. So we had some kind of areas right here and down by the rocks that were already a little bit brighter, but I'm going to emphasize this a little bit. So I'm going to add a control point to start. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom of the right panel, click my control point, and I'm going to click one right over here. And then I'm going to adjust the size of the circle to about there. And then I'm going to go into my brightness and we're going to up that to about there. And then I brought the warmth down just a hair. So I wanted it brighter, but not overly bright. And then something I just saw when I was reading my notes from the affiliate webinar we had of the new release. Normally, if I wanted to copy a control point, I would come up under here and there's a little plus sign and that will let you copy it. But I noticed in my notes, and I have not tried this, so I'm going to try it now. It says you can hold the Alt key, click this control point, and then drag it on over. So it would be Option on a Mac, Alt on a PC. So you can just Alt drag, click drag, and then you can resize it. And then if you want to, you can, so you can see now I have control point number 2. And I'm going to use the same settings because I wanted to do the same thing there, other than make it a little bigger. And with that, I'm going to come back to Photoshop. And did you add the DxO photo separate, or you just didn't bother with when you get time or breaking point? When that pop-up screen came up, I just clicked finish and I did not download it the second time so that it would not install. So if you just click finish, it won't do anything. Hopefully that answers you. It says that feature has been available in previous versions, but I never got that pop-up before, and it just totally messed me up. I was like, wait a minute, where'd all my controls go? Because you guys all know I like working in Photoshop. And Judith says the option clicks the way I've been copying control points for years, and I never knew that was there before. So I always learn more and more about all this software because, you know me, I'm using lots of different things and doing lots of different things. So I don't have the time like somebody who is focusing on, you know, this one product, and like working for the company or whatever and just doing things for them. So I don't get to know some of them as in depth as I would like to. So now we're back in Photoshop. So I'm going to do a non-Nik process right now. I'm going to add a blank layer and I'm going to add some light beams with a brush. So I'm going to go to my brush panel, and it's open because I was playing with this earlier, but the brush set, and I have the link in the notes as well. It's this light beams set, and this is from the website DeviantArt, and it's called Light Beams, Rays, Photoshop, and GIMP brushes. So it's this beams one particle. And then I'm going to change my foreground color, which is there from earlier. It's FCF4C4. It's a real pale yellow. And then I made my brush size 1600 pixels. And then I want to rotate it a little bit. And you can use your brush panel to do that. There one. You can use the arrow, but I find sometimes with especially these types of brushes, if you use your arrow keys on your keyboard, it moves it in 1 degree increments. You can see it's rotating to the right with the right arrow, and you can see what it's doing up here in the degrees. So I'm going to -15 was where I went in my settings. And then I'm going to click it once up here in the upper right. And then I did change the blend mode to screen. And I'm going to do a Control T, Command T on a Mac to get the bounding box. And I'm going to make this bigger. And I'm going to bring it down about here and over about like that. Somewhere like that. And bring back the opacity a little bit. And then I duplicated that layer with a Control J if you want it to be a little bit more predominant. And then you could link these two if you wanted to, and then do a Control T, and I could still, you know, stretch it up if I wanted to go higher or over. And I just wanted to look like the sun rays coming in on that ground there. And there you have it. So Pat says there are only 13 files, no bonus folder, no notes. That's weird. That other people have it. I'll have to take a look when we get done tonight. I will look at that folder. And then the last thing I did on here was go back to my Nik Color Effects, and I'm going to add just a slight vignette. I've always liked their vignetting in here, and there's a few options. I'm going to come down to use the lens vignette, and obviously that's much too dark, so we're going to make the amount -10 and the shape 12% and the size there. And I may even, I have it at -10, but we might even want a teeny bit less than that. Because you never want a vignette to be noticeable. You want it to be direct your viewer's eye, but if they didn't see the before and after, they wouldn't even know it's there. So you can see, yep. So there's our before and after. So it's very subtle. It's really, you notice it most on the bottom. Danelle said, yes, it is DeviantArt for the brush light rays. And I'll put that link in the blog on Thursday as well. But you should just buy the notes. And then you'll have it. You'll have it now. So, but I'll put that in the blog as well. So I thought you did. Yeah, it's in the notes on page 2, I think. Yeah, it's on the second page, right at the bottom is the link. So if you go from the PDF, you can link right to that website. Alrighty, so that's our second image. So we went again, just to show you what we've done here, from our original, very flat, very nondescript kind of an image to something, you know, it'd be nice on a card or something for the fall, or put some word art on it and make it a little poster type of thing. Okay, so next up, this one we're going to do a whole lot of control points. And this is, again, I was looking for some of the images. I'm like, I like this image, but I didn't know what I really wanted to do with it. And I did do a little adjustment in Lightroom and a little bit of Sharpen AI in Topaz, and then masked it off the background. So this is my original as is. And then this is with the sharpening on. So it's very subtle, really tough to see probably over the web. But just to do a little bit of tweaking. And this, you know, down here, get rid of that brush, down on the lower right is falling off in focus, but that didn't really bother me. I can like the curve of this one, and I was like, let's see what we can do with this. Sometimes I like the challenge of taking a image and see what we can do with it. So in this one, we're going to go into our analog effects, which is the other one with a bunch of updates. And they definitely have changed the layout of this, which I really like. So now you have the cameras like you did before. You can do a show all. These are all of the different styles that you used to click the one box and then get the fly out menu. So these are all right here. And then if you click on camera kit, you'll see the individual adjustments, which you had before, but it was just set up much different. So on here, I'm going to choose film type. And then over here, I went from warm, I went to the cool tones and used this one here. And you can see it's very subtle. I can do there's the before, after. Oh, let's do it like before, after. So it made that bluer area up here more green. And I did make the strength of that it's at 50. I did about a 44. So I didn't really change that very much. We're going to go back to Photoshop. We're going to go to our color effects. And this is where we're going to do a whole bunch of stuff. So I wanted to do a little bit of glamour glow on the flower. but due to the shape of the flower, I found I had to copy the control point a whole bunch of times. And I'm going to show you how to see what your control points are doing. So first I'm going to go in here to Glamour Glow. And I'm going to click on a control point and click kind of over the main part of the flower. We'll start with this one. Let's bring that down just a hair. Make it a tad bigger. And what I wanted to do, because I only want the Glamour Glow on the flower, not on everything else. So I'm just going to bring the opacity to 86. And that's the Glamour Glow. So then I'm going to click and drag this to the different areas of the photo and just keep adjusting the size of the circle. So you want to be able to see like what areas you're affecting. So if you come in here at the top above all of the control points, this little box, and it lets you hide the selection for the control points. When I click above the control points, it'll show me what all of the control points are doing. So you can see the area that we're affecting. So you can see if you want to, move it a little bit. And I want to make sure it's on the flower petal and not the background, because that's the part that I want the glow on. So this one I'm actually going to move a little. So for this particular one, that's kind of an important feature, because I really want to affect the whites of the flower, not the background in between the flowers. So if we go to the second one, that's there. So I'm going to do an Alt, click and drag it, make sure I'm on a petal, and then I can bring it in a little. And this Alt dragging is great. I don't know why I never knew about this before. One of those things I just never came across, I guess. So I'm going to do that one there. We'll bring one more down here. Okay. And just trying to get it on the right petals here. And we'll do one more. I didn't go quite all the way to the bottom, but I did want to get all of this, and then we can bring one more over here. I wanted to get the main part, and then I'm going to bring one more up in this area. And one more over here on this flower. And let's make sure we have this area that we want in here. So we ended up with 11 control points, and that kind of will vary, depending on your sizing and how you move them around. So then we can turn that back off, and it's really subtle. So if I turn off the Glamour Glow, it just gives it that real little bit of glow and brightness. It's very subtle. Let me bring the opacity of it back up. You might be able to see it a little bit more. So the before, it just, I don't know, it gave it just that nice little bit of glow. I didn't want to get too crazy with it. And then we'll go apply. This was a flower in the field. This was not in a studio. I don't even remember where off the top of my head that I took this one, or what folder I took it from, but it definitely was not a studio shot. Thank you. Okay, so let's go into our analog effects. And yes, I would clone these out, Judith, and you're going to see what happens in a minute. I'm not going to have to clone them out. So I'm going to go into our vintage camera. And I chose number 4. And I went over here to, I want to go into, sometimes finding what you want down here under cool, row number 3, second row number 3. So I went a little darker here. So you can see those are starting to fade away. And I kind of like that. I liked it's kind of an antique-y look without being over the top. It's still keeping the whiter color in most of the petals. So we're going to go back to our Photoshop. And I'm going to add some additional bokeh. So you can see with just that effect, how it really toned down that bright green in the background. And I liked the couple of bokeh spots that were in here. So I decided to emphasize that with one of my textures. And this is from my bokeh 3 collection. And this is included with the notes. We're going to say, okay, before I do that, yep, I do want to rotate this. So I'm just going to put my cursor outside and get the curved arrow. If I hold the shift key, it rotates in 15-degree increments because I wanted the more of the brighter bokeh at the top. We'll say okay. And I also shifted it right about a little bit. So let's stretch that out a hair. And I'm going to change my blending mode to hard light. And I lowered the opacity to about 40%. And then I'm going to add a layer mask because I don't want the bokeh on the foreground. So let's add a layer mask, grab another soft round brush. And we don't need it that big. Change our foreground color to black. Our opacities are at 100%. And I'm just going to do a quick mask like that, because we only want that in our background. And then let me flip my page. So I used I'm going to add a blank layer, and I used the elliptical marquee tool to select one of these spots and add a couple more because they didn't all really come through as much. So I'm just going to kind of do that. And they always say if you hold the shift and move, you can move these, and I can never move them, but I can use my arrow key and make it move, which works better. So I'm going to do a Control J. Oops, because I'm not on the right layer. Let's go back to this layer, Control J. And now it's on a separate layer, so I really don't need that one. And then I can use my Move tool, and we can move it over here, and we can rotate it so it's not exactly the same. And then I'm going to do another Control J, and then move that one maybe down here. And we can re-rotate it a little bit. And you could adjust the opacities too if you wanted to make it brighter or darker. And there you have it, just to add in a few more. So I did change the opacities in the notes. It has some percentages, and there you have it. So again, we went from that to that. And I like that a lot better. It's still probably not it's not something I'm going to put into a competition, but I like it a lot better. And if you didn't like this yellow spot, you could always drag another white one over it and get rid of that one as well. So there we have it. Let's see if we have any other questions. Nope, I think we're good. And next we're going to do this one, which I really like. We're going to go into our Viveza. And I'm going to start with preset 5, which is darken, because I want to tone down the background and make the actual tractor stand out a little bit. So I'm going to use control points now to brighten up the areas I want to, but I've darkened down the background really well. So let's click on our control point. And I'm going to start with the headlight. We can make this about the size of that. And I'm going to set my brightness to 10. contrast, structure, highlights I'm going to bring down, and open up the shadows just a little. So that's our first one. And then even though I'm going to make changes, I'm going to just drag this to, next we're going to do the hood. Okay. And let's kind of work on them. You can see how it changes depending the area I'm on, because I really want to brighten up the white of this a little bit. So I want to get it so it's emphasizing that area. So we're going to make the brightness so I can just change these from what I did the settings at. We're going to leave that about there. Structure. We'll bring up a tad more. Highlights. I don't want to bring down as much. And shadows to 12. And then we could duplicate that one if you wanted this side of the hood to be, you know, as bright as that side. We can see if we can get a spot that it works. So it'll brighten up that side a little bit. And then next I want to do the grill area. So I'm going to alt click this one. And so we're going to do brightness of 12, contrast 54, structure, highlights, and shadows. We're going to bring up a little bit more. And then the last one will be the bumper. And I'll bring one of the smaller ones over. And even though this is not encompassing the whole bumper, it's going to look for those tones and adjust it accordingly. So this side is a little darker, so we may want to put one here and then copy it more to the right. But it won't adjust what isn't that color. And you can see that when I'm dragging it around. Highlights. Okay, I'll get to the question in 1 second. And then I'm just going to drag this over this side a little bit and brighten that up. And then we're going to say apply. And let's see, when you change the settings on your next control point, does that change the last one? No, because I'm changing it to a new control point. So it did not. Next, I'm going to do, oops, I think I went 1 page too far here. I wanted to go into silver effects. And I'm going to use preset 23. It's called Wet Rocks, but I liked the way it looked on this particular one. And the only thing I changed was the midtones. I upped to 92. And that was it. And there you have it. So now the tractor stands out a lot more from the background. There you go. We would apply that and go back to Photoshop. And next we're going to do an HDR image. Is there an opacity slider in Silver Efex? Good question. I'll have to look when I go back in there. Let's see if we can, I'll try and answer that before we finish. Thank you. I'm not sure that there is. if I wanted to like let some of the color back through, I would do that here in Photoshop, which is why I like working with the layers. So if I wanted to, you know, add a little tinge of color back to it, you can play with your opacity slider here. I don't think there is over in Color Efex or Silver Efex, but we'll double check that. Dave says, Pat Rec, where are you? You always got all my answers when I'm not sure. Okay, so in here, we're going to go to our HDR Efex Pro, and I'm going to use the one for merging multiple exposures. And these are raw files I'm going to bring in, so it's going to take a couple seconds to process it. We'll click on our open, and it's going to go right to my folder. And I'm clicking these images here. And we're going to say open. You can do smart objects here if you wish. I probably should, but I just never really made it a big part of my workflow. I know I should. And Dave says I never will. It's hard to break old habits sometimes. Could you do the Viveza control points after converting to black and white? No, because I already accepted and applied the Viveza. So I would, you know, that's why I did the black and white conversion afterwards. But you can't go back and change. If you make it a smart object, you can. But because I don't do it that way, so the way I do it, no, I wouldn't be able to do that. So it's finishing this merge, and then it's going to, I don't have any ghosting, so I don't have to do that. It's going to align my images. If you do the chromatic aberration, and this where you get color fringing around your images sometimes, to adjust it, as soon as you start moving one of these sliders, it will give you this box that you can then look around in your image. So you can see kind of here. Yes, dear? Tell everybody if they want to comment, make it to everybody. Oh, yes. If you're typing in the comment, in the chat box, if you at the bottom where it says 2, if you could select everyone so that everybody can see the questions, I'd appreciate it. I know it defaults to the hosts and panelists, but if you could change that, I'd appreciate it. Thanks. So I'm going to leave that one at 8.9, the blue, yellow. Actually, I didn't really change these here. I'm going to see if I can get rid of a little bit of that though. Let's try if we go a little more toward the yellow. You don't want to go too far because then it starts offsetting the other side. But that helps a little. Got rid of some of the red there. So you kind of have to play with it, and it's, you know, it's a matter of getting the whole image as good as you can. But they do tend to really show up where you have like sky and other things. You'll never get rid of all of it, but you can make them much less noticeable. So then I'm going to create my HDR. And I don't see any way to adjust opacity in Silver Efex. Yeah, I don't think there is, because it wouldn't know what to lower the opacity on, because it's, you know, brought in the image and then you're just changing it to the black and white or sepia or whatever you do in there. So it wouldn't have anything to change that to. In Color Efex, you can do that because you can apply multiple presets or filters, where in the other programs you only have the one process. What was that, Ben? There was a merge that she doesn't have it. Click the everyone and it should get dropped down there. Yeah, Dave had that problem too in the beginning. I'm not sure why. So there's 3 dots over there. Yeah, there's like a little 3 dots, or well, it should be under the 2 where it says everyone, or it says hosts and panelists. But anyway, if you can, good. If not, not a biggie. All right, so in here, I'm going to use preset number 10, which is structurized. And then on the right, I changed the tone compression to about 70. And the method strength, I moved over to about 75, and that's the method of this merge. Then under HDR method on detail, I moved this one's, these kind of have like dots here. You can move it section by section. And drama, I moved over there. Then tonality, I did shadows, 43, and highlights, I brought down. And I think the drama looks a little, maybe too much. Maybe I'll go back one and say, okay. And Jean says another way to adjust the opacity in Silver Efex would be to use the brush. It then sends back to Photoshop and you can paint in the effect. I'll have to check that out. I've never tried that. So there is our merged image. And now I'm going to go into perspective effects. So I'm going to duplicate this layer. Perspective effects is the only Nik product that does not create its own layer because it needs the pixels to straighten the image. So I like to duplicate so I still have my original underneath. So I'm going to go into my perspective effects. Judith says, I like it better with less drama. Also, a lot of drama made it look like a painting. Yeah, it seemed a little, I mean, I like my HDR more natural. Every now and then I push it a little bit, but that was a little too much. So thank you, I agree. So in here, what I want to do is straighten this door a little bit. So I'm going to go into my vertical perspective. And under cross aspect, I'm going to select unconstrained because I don't want it to stretch my image. And then I'm going to bring my slider over, and I don't want it completely straight, but I want it straighter. So I'm not going to line it up to make it completely straight. And then I'm going to hit preview to see if I like it. That looks pretty good. And then I'll apply it. And so it's still got a slight angle, which is okay. It was a little too much for me the way it was. And we're going to save it. And then I did a little bit of cropping in Photoshop. I came down to about there. And I want to get rid of some of this really dark area at the bottom. So I came up a little bit here. And then we're going to add another look in our analog effects. And we're going to go to the En Vogue category. And we're going to use warm faded. And then we're going to change it to warm. Use this first one. And then I'm going to go to the dirt and scratches section and change it to this one to add a little more grunge in it. And I didn't mind the lens flares. This was from the way the light was coming through the window. It's either that or some ghosts floating around. I'm not sure. It was an abandoned building. So, but I actually kind of like this. So I didn't want to take those out. So we're going to hit apply. And then we're going to do a couple more things in our color effects. So we're going to come over to our color effects, and I'm going to add some more color to the window pane where it didn't really have color. This was an old brewery in Connecticut that somebody else arranged a trip to, and Dave and I went on it. Or was it? Oh yeah, Massachusetts. I'm sorry, not Connecticut. It was like up around the Springfield area. You're right. And yeah, it hadn't been empty for that long, so there was still a lot of stuff in it, a lot of cool beer bottles and, you know, different local brands that they made and stuff. But that was a neat place. So I'm going to start with the bicolor user defined. Obviously, those aren't the colors that I'm going to want. For the upper color, I chose, put my number in, 4253BA, and say okay. And the lower color, A0AFDB. A0AFDB. Yep, that's it. And I'm going to add a control point in this pane, which is where I want to put this effect. I don't want it on the whole image. And then I'm going to reduce the opacity of this filter to 55. So it's just adding a little more color in there. And say I'm going to add a filter. I'm going to go into my film effects, vintage. So I'm going to hit the plus sign because I want to add it to that. I'm going to go to film type 16. And I reduce the opacity of that effect a little bit. And the last one, I'm going to do my glamour glow. And we're going to do that at 66%. And shadows out there. And highlights I brought all the way up. And apply. Yes, I could have cloned the left window and moved it over, but I was trying to do as much as I could in the Nik products, just so you can see how it works. Some of the effects are starred because I've marked them as favorites. And when you're in the panel, if you go over to the right where the stars are, it'll pop up and you can just click it. And that will let you mark them as favorites. So if you wanted to see a short list, you could. And there is our finish. So this was our HDR merge. And then there's our final. Again, I was kind of, being old and vintagey type of a look. Was kind of what I was going for there. And I've got one more for you. So next we have, hey, I said I have one more for you. Dave goes, I hope it's something good. Jeez. All right, so this one was just, it was an old gas station. It's actually on one of our Barnes workshops that we found, and this was around the side. It's door open with just a bunch of buckets and things. And I don't know, I just kind of liked all the textures in here, but I wanted to do something with this. So back to our color effects. What was that? Pat says, can you select a specific color from the photo to use in the bicolor without entering the numbers? Yeah, I think you can. If you, when you have that, let's see, if we go into, we'll go into here for a second. When you click on, yeah, I think you can just choose that eyedropper. Yes, and you can just select a color from within the image. Yeah, you would just have to choose it again if you want to click something different. So if we chose that red, there you go. Thanks, Pat. Do you prefer merging HDR in Nik or Photoshop? I actually most of the time use Photomatix, only because I've been using that for so long that I like the layout of it. It's simple. What I like best about that one is the way that you select the deghosting. When you use the Nik one or even Aurora HDR, which is part of Skylum and Luminar package, you have to choose an image that you want it to use if there's ghosting, where in Photomatix you circle the area that you have ghosting in and it will automatically pick the proper image to use there. So I really like that feature. I just think it does a better job when you have that ghosting, you know, somebody walk through your image, or you have tree branches moving or anything like that. So that is why I use that most of the time. But if you have the Nik product and not the other, the Nik works great too. If you're, you know, depending what you have, I would use what you have. I don't really like Photoshop as well for merging things. I do it for like panoramas, but I don't like their HDR stuff. I do have an affiliate link. They did away with our discount code, but I do have an affiliate link, and I will post that for you. I'll put it in the link that will go out tomorrow with when you get the thing from Zoom. Thanking you for being here. I always put in the link to the YouTube, and I'll put that in there as well. And I'll put it in the blog on Thursday too. So thank you. Nik does not do codes. They never have. I do have an affiliate link, but they do not do discount codes. I found a lot of the software companies are starting to do away with them on a regular basis. Topaz is also, as of August 1st, discontinuing the regular 15% code that we have. And it's going to be like promotion specific when they come out with different campaigns. So I think, you know, everybody's hurting, and they need, you know, they figure they're paying us and giving you guys a discount and having something on sale, and they just can't sustain it right now. Okay, so in here, and so here's what I was mentioning about the favorites. So that one is start. If you just click on the star, it will make it your favorite. And if you don't want a favorite, you just don't click it again. Yeah, if you're gonna update any of your subscriptions, you can use my code, my link in my code, and save the 15% on your Topaz upgrade for the year. Yeah, that year long thing. Okay, so let me finish this one because we're almost out of time. So let's go to colorize. And I went to method number 6, which it's on. Strength, I only did 8% this way. And shadows, I opened up. And highlights. And then I added a graduated neutral density. So we're going to add this. And on this one, I did upper tonality at -25, which it's at, lower at 0, blend at 25, and vertical at 50. And so it's remembering my settings. And then what I wanted to do was really make this look faded. So I decided to try the graduated fog filter. And I'm going to use method 2. And I changed the opacity to 47. The blend to 34. The vertical shift to 80, or this way, 86. And the highlights to 18. So there you go. So that really gave it that kind of faded look and softened it up from something that was very, you know, harsh and kind of bright, and it toned it all down and just kind of made it, you know, almost like a dreamy look, even though it's not a subject that you would think of as dreamy. A note too, on when you guys were asking about affiliate links, on the last page of the notes, if you have the notes, I do have a bunch of my affiliate links in there, including Topaz, Nik, Luminar, Smart Photo Editor, some of my favorite software ones. Then the notes are on my website. They're listed in today's blog and Sunday's blog, and they're on sale for $5 until next Tuesday. And that includes all the images I used, that bokeh texture, plus the 6 bonus textures and the notes in PDF form. So you can grab those while they're on sale. And yeah, and the notes includes the link to the brushes, which I'll give you guys. I'm going to make a note to give you the link to, what's that, babe? Yeah, it's in there, and I'll post it too. The link to the brushes. And yeah, it's an Obsidian Dawn is the website, and they were called Light Beams, Rays, Photoshop, and GIMP brushes. But if you type in, there's several different kinds on the site, but that's the particular one I used. And for us dummies, it is 2 different downloads this time in the notes section, because the images, I guess I had in one folder, and then there's a subfolder with the bonus textures, which the notes got slid into that folder. So yeah, so and I do sell the notes at a very reasonable price. It's like a cup of coffee nowadays, and that helps pay for the Zoom and the time that it takes me to create all these things and keep bringing you these webinars for free. I know there's a lot of pros out there who charge $10, $20, $30, $40 for a webinar, and I don't want to do that. I like being able to share what I do, but I do have to make a living. And I really appreciate you guys' support. You guys are fabulous. You're always here for me. I'm working on the last module of our textures course. If you haven't checked that out yet, check the blog for information. There's a discount code until the end of the month, because then the price is going up because I'm working on the last module, and then I'm going to start adding more stuff to it. And I will be increasing the price even over the $129 regular price now, but you can save $20 off of that for the next week. And we're having a lot of fun with that. And I think we're done. I always feel like I'm not always going to get it all in, but we had some great questions, and I do go back through the questions. So if there's anything I missed, I'll do a little recap in Thursday's blog as well. Stephanie said, I told a friend I wanted to move to Rogersville so I could be near your expertise. Thank you, Stephanie. Say hi to your hubby too. Yeah, and if you don't have Nik, it definitely will give you some creative ideas that you can do with other programs. I always tell people that even with the textures, and like in the textures course, if you don't have one of the apps on the iPhone, or you don't have an iPad, which we use for one section, you can still get the ideas and do them in Photoshop, or do them in Elements, or whatever program you use. It's all about the inspiration, and that's what I like to do for you guys. So thanks again. I appreciate it. And I will see y'all again real soon. Have a great evening.